I am a licensed therapist in a couple states, North Carolina and Colorado, so that's an LPC, licensed professional counselor. I am a licensed addictions counselor in just this state, Colorado. I'm an ACS certified supervisor. I'm CCS certified supervisor. And there's other credentials that I have. My son makes fun of me. He says, "Dad, you don't know that, and you have like 15 letters after you."
So
and
you have a lot of initials behind your name.
They have a lot of name on them, but
yeah.
Most relevantly is licensed therapist and supervisor. So we've been in Colorado 7 years and started our business 7 years ago, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been in the field since I got off the streets. I was homeless for about 5 years, and I got off the streets in my mid to late 20s, and I started as a behavioral health tech. I worked in a place called Shadow Mountain.
Okay.
Teenage girls, 12 to 17, used to put them in handle care holds and different things. That's where I started. And then I once I got off the streets, I had already had some schooling, so I finished my schooling. I sobered up. I was an alcoholic and drug addict, and I sobered up and got my schooling done, and then I became a special ed teacher. And I did that. That's when Angie and I met, my wife. But that's not how we met. Most people think that's how I met her. No. But once I did adopt a special needs son, I quit doing special ed teaching. It was just too much for me. Do it all day and then all night. But I have a heart for those people and always have. But yeah, then, so let's see, I became a therapist in Oklahoma in 2012 maybe. And then we moved because we were looking for better services for our special needs son. Cullen, he's 20 now, and brought us here. You want to know? How much do you want to know? There's a lot of details.
Well, actually, I want to kind of get deep into what was that Ebenezer moment that got you off drugs, off the street? You know, because
sure.
you know we treat people like this, right? And it's like, what is that moment?
Yeah.
And I honestly, I have a brother who is an addict, and he's on the street. And, you know, you think that it can't happen in functional middle-class families, and it happens all the time. And so my first question, and I think the audience would really want to know that story of what allows someone to make that decision?
It was actually love from two different people. Well, once I had been on the streets, I don't know, a couple of years, and I was under a bridge, completely hopeless. At this point, I was already off drugs. Okay. But there was two different things. So to get off drugs, it was really just bad things kept happening, I finally just said, I tried to commit suicide 3 different times. And last time I tried, I didn't see anything good in front of me when I tried, so can I be detailed? Okay. So I had a knife and had it to my chest, and I had been starving myself for 3 weeks in the Illinois River in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. And I had social phobia so bad, agoraphobia so bad. My dad had passed a couple years before. My first wife, had left me. I had to stop school because I couldn't speak in front of people. I was so intimidated by people. I put the knife into my chest and I said, okay, this is it. You're going to do it. And I couldn't do it. Nothing good flashed before my eyes. Nothing good. So instead, I did a dumb thing, and I stabbed myself on the leg. And I don't mind it.
Not funny.
Not funny. No, laugh. It is funny. It hurt like hell. But what's funny is, so I ended up going to rehab, and the way my mind was so twisted, I lied and I said I got in a fight. I was in a wheelchair for 3 months because I put a Leatherman through my leg and through my bone. That's hard to hear, but I'm just you want to hear? I'll tell you. But then I was a place called I can't forget the name of it. It was on 2nd and Mingo in Tulsa. It'll come to me in a second. Some Meadows. But I sobered up there because I realized that if I kept I was going to die. There was no option for me. You know, they say if you continue, you're going to one of 3 places: death, jail, or psych place. And I pretty much all of them besides death. And so I decided, okay, you're going to have to make a decision, and that's what did it for me. Two decisions I made. You're not going back to alcohol and drugs, no matter what, and you're never going to attempt to kill yourself again. You're going to face your problems head on, and no matter what comes your way. And sure enough, it's been maybe 18, 19 years in July. But then...
That's amazing, and I have this campaign where I talk about suicide not an option, that when we are feeling well, we need to say suicide is not an option regardless. Because I think, oftentimes we think we can't get there, and everybody has a threshold
they do.
To be there. And, making that decision, it's what has... I talked about this after my son's death, and I really did not have any suicidality after my son's death. But after my daughter's death, I did. But I had previously already made that decision that it would never be an option. And so I start reframing that whole suicidality as a feeling rather than an action. I'm not telling you you can't feel it, because you might.
You very well could.
But don't make it an action.
And that's normal. To feel that way is, it's not rare. A lot of us, like you said, we have a threshold. Doesn't mean anything's wrong with us. It means that we've hit that threshold. You're right. But to go back to the original question, two things set me on a different path, a completely different path. There's actually two different men. So again, back to when I was first starting the story, I was on the streets for a couple years. I was under a bridge, completely hopeless. My family thought I was still using, I believe, so I was still abandoned. And I was under a bridge, and I had soggy, wet clothes on because it was raining. I couldn't find any shelter. When I say under a bridge, I'm not talking in those crevices a lot of people sleep in. I was actually sitting where you could see me, and some man just came up to me out of nowhere, gave me a fresh pair of socks. Didn't say a word to me, just gave them to me. And for whatever reason, that was strong enough to add a little dye into a glass of water. It just permeated my whole soul. It was like just love. He didn't preach at me with anything, nothing. He just gave them to me. And I was like, maybe I realized there was some good in the world. That was one. And then I ended up having some more issues and went to several different places. One place called Tulsa Center for Behavioral Health. And then I ended up in Joplin, Missouri, a homeless shelter for homeless vets, and I'm not a vet. So I felt like a stray dog. There was 156 of us. There was one van. So I had to walk to work, and you were forced to work. It was a good thing. I lived in the basement with a bunch of people who just got out of prison. And they forced you to go AA meetings. So I would go to these meetings, and you have to remember at the time I was racist. I had been hurt by people with certain skin color several times, so I had to, in my mind, I was defending myself. So I stayed away from certain types of people, the way I put it back then. And so I was going to this AA meeting over and over, living at this place called House Inc. And there was a gentleman, he was a Black American, that kept trying to engage with me and interact with me. And my thought was either he was attracted to me, he was gay, or he wanted to hurt me some way. So I would stay away from him, but then I would walk to this job. It was called General Mills. I was packing cereal. I'd walk to this job, which was like, it took me like 2.5, 3 hours to get there, and it was 2 degrees. I had a t-shirt, had no jacket. It got stolen. I got a voucher for a jacket. The only jacket I got, I gave up on it because it got stolen. So I'm walking shivering, and this guy named Keenan, the awesome Black American guy, he pulls up next to me, and he's like, he called me white boy. He goes, white boy, you crazy, get in this truck. He said, it's 2 degrees out here. And I'm like, yeah, I am crazy. But I just kept walking. I'm like, what do you want from me, man? And then I said no like 3 or 4 times. I said, no, I'm good, man. But then finally it was cold. He's like, white boy, get in this car. What's wrong with you? You know, and so I finally said, okay. And remember, it takes 2.5, 3 hours to get to work. I had 2 hours to kill. He took me to his house, and
he didn't kill you?
No, right. He didn't kill me. He didn't hurt me. He didn't hurt me like I had been hurt for basically no reason. I thought anyway. took me back to his house, introduced me to his wife and his son. His son was just tall now. He's like 7 foot tall. He's a big dude. And that was very out of the ordinary, very, it allowed me to let some guards down, because what I thought was going to happen, the opposite happened. But not only did the opposite happen, stuff kept happening that I wasn't expecting, which was like a gesture of love from one human to another's connection. So the main thing that he did for me was he took me to his closet and he told me, pick out a jacket. And I said,
that's a nice man. I would have given you my least favorite.
Well, yeah, that's what he did. Yeah, well, that's what I thought. Yeah. So I did. That's because I felt that way.
Yeah.
I pulled out this worn, tattered, like hoodie. And it has the holes in it, like it was working. He's like, no, man, you worth more than that. And he took the coat off his back and gave it to me. And that was, it was an emotional hug. It was a mental hug. It was a warmth I hadn't felt in years. Several years. And then the guy would come pick me up and take me, and I don't hunt, but I know everything about hunting now, because he would take me hunting.
Oh.
Yeah, and he'd teach me about life and about recovery. And he was a wonderful man. And so years later, I've started coat programs. I've given away thousands of coats at this point, I'm sure, because of what he did.
Yeah.
We ended up, there's other detail to that where we could go into it later.
I have a personal question about that story.
Sure.
And when you're under the bridge and you feel abandoned by your family, and I told you my brother is an addict.
Yeah.
And we're both professionals, right? You work with addicts every day. And what is that balance between abandon and enabling, right? I have gotten to the point where I have had to, I feel, and I could readdress this, but I feel like I had to cut my brother off. And I helped him for 7 years, like living in my house, and kept finding drugs in my house. And I mean, I've gone above and beyond, but now he's in that situation, and he's done so much drugs that there's now a psychosis to what he's doing, right? So I'm not even sure how to, I'm a psychiatric nurse practitioner, I know how to connect, but he won't take meds, and so there's just, what is that balance? Because I bet you family members of addicts who are listening to this want to know how to help their family member be like you, right? Because we want to be that guy that gave you the coat, but we've also been burned over and over again.
And just so you know, I have a brother that's an extreme addict too.
Yeah.
And he, ever since he was 14 or 15, he's 34 now, and he's never once sought help that I know of, or at least we used to try to get him into rehab. He would climb out the back window and different things, So I find myself very fortunate in the fact that I was able to see that it was life or death for me, and in some sense, I'm very fortunate that it was so tough for me because I didn't have a choice. There's a lot of people that right now that are functioning alcoholics. That to me is the hardest struggle, because you can hide it well, and you can, and you may not get the help you need right away. But I would say to your viewers, there is help for you too, and just because you're functioning doesn't mean it's not having an impact on your life.
Right.
That's really hurting you. But to answer that question, I've been trying to answer that for myself too. I don't think there's a definitive answer. I'll tell you what I've done in terms of being an addict myself in recovery, and then also having a loved one that I love dearly. I basically raised him. It's like a son to me that has struggled with it his whole life. So for the longest time, I would try to mention to him different programs because I'm in the field, and it just pushed him away. And then I finally started, after working in rehabs for a long time, I finally started figuring out why, and that was not helpful at all. That I was actually just becoming, there was a polarity created that I was to be avoided because I meant help. And so that's not what they want, because the help they have in their mind is already there, and it's that drug. So an alternative form of help, putting it in front of them, makes them consider something they don't want to consider. So what I learned and worked for me, and I don't know, you'd have to ask my brother if it worked or not. I don't know, but I found that I started connecting with him again. We were surprised that he didn't die a long time ago, and we're thankful that he didn't. But it's so ingrained in him that I have learned to, if I'm going to have a relationship with him, I cannot go into it with judgment or even help anymore. And this comes from a licensed addiction counselor. I come into it with pure unconditional love, and I don't mean enabling. Example.
Right. Where's that balance, right?
Example. So when I go home, generally what happens when I say I go home back to Oklahoma for Christmas or whatnot, he lives with my mother, and I will go in there and listen to him. He knows, he doesn't ask me for anything because he probably already knows where I'm going to go with that. But he will cry and I will hold him. Just like I did when he was a baby. And
I'm going to tear up.
Oh, that's good.
My brother's too big to hold him, but
Yeah. Oh, is he? Yeah.
he's like 6'4" or something. I don't know. Yeah.
Well, yeah, my brother's not that big. But yeah, my brother, in methadone clinic, all that, and when he doesn't have it, I'm sure he goes to other things. I don't know for sure, but you know, and I know he struggles a lot with alcoholism. But and my heart has been tenderized over time after working in rehabs and watching people pass away and from this and all that. I think, what can I do when I'm around him that will leave him feeling better, but not enabled, but that I do love him and that I'm there for him no matter what. And again, I've never bought him anything. I've never done any of those things. And I think it's just kind of an unspoken contract we have between each other, because he knows I'm an addict. He knows I know the game. But he will cry and he will bawl in my arms. He will tear up, and because he lost his 5 kids. And I've never personally had any of my own kids. I basically adopted the 2. And I cannot imagine what that's like. And in my mind, I'm thinking he's doing the best he knows how. He knows drugs, he knows alcohol. They have created a monster of problems in his life, but for him to stay where he feels is safe, he continues to do that stuff, and I'm not going to judge him.
Let's dive into
sure.
that a little bit, because as an addiction counselor, and then knowing it firsthand, I think this is something those of us who have never been addicted to drugs don't understand. Can you try to explain it to us of like why they keep choosing this thing that hurts them? Sure.
Yeah. Well, I think for a lot of people, it happens in the early teen years. What we call the authentic self, and different. There's different terms you might use, but when we present to the world who we really are, if the world comes back with "that's not good enough," or the world comes back with "I don't like you," a lot of mental health issues can develop. Or in general, there's a thing called an exiled child. That's a term they use in therapy. But what it means is that real version of you kind of goes into hiding. And tries to find some kind of peace.
And that's when he started drinking.
And that's when most people, you hear at 14, 15, because that real version of them after puberty and all that, it's there, but then what they're getting reflected back is it's not good enough, or it's not right, it's not this. As soon as they take one hit of the drug or alcohol, whatever their drug of choice is, it cures all that. Because you ever, when I'm sure you probably drank alcohol before, and it makes you feel bigger, taller, faster, better looking. We call it Google eyes in college. Like, what were you thinking? It just changes your mind about everything, including yourself. So as soon as you get that, if the world's not giving it to you, why the crap wouldn't you? So they keep going back because they're getting from that what the world is not giving them. And then in my brother's case, and God, I hope he doesn't watch this.
I'm going to make my family watch this, by the way.
Okay. Well, they don't know my family. But in my brother's case, and I'm glad you're editing some of this out. If I say something, maybe I'll ask you to take it out. But my dad, for whatever reason, wasn't very nice to him. I don't know why. My older brother, same way. Me, I've had open heart surgery. I think my dad was afraid he would kill me, so he didn't put hands on me. Oh. And I don't know that he put hands on my younger brother. I'm talking about one that did, but I can remember him trying to make him this perfect creature. Like, do this right. You're doing this wrong. Everything was nitpicky, and I imagine that it created this low self-esteem, low self-worth. And I can remember my father actually saying those things to me way before my younger brother was born, because I'm 46, so there's a gap. Like, you and your brother are so worthless. All those things, those messages we got. And those things stick. And a lot of people, your audience, get the same thing. And, you know, I now being a parent, I can relate to it differently. God forbid I ever do that.
When the most common core connection I find with people when we're working through the Mentally Strong method is, I'm not good enough.
Yeah,
like, regardless of the symptom, depression, anxiety, PTSD, you know, addiction, that there's this core connection. And I struggle with it too.
Yeah, I think we all do.
Good at,
especially in America. We don't get into that too much, but we're about winning. We got trophies everywhere. It's about winning, about being right, getting A's. Nobody's good enough. We're always striving to be better. So that is innate and just I believe, in the country we live in. I think there are other countries, never been to them, but I would imagine they seem a lot more peaceful than we are, some of them. But so the reason they go back is because they're getting from life that what you may be getting, they're getting from the drugs what you may be getting from life. A lot of the difference is, a lot of times people don't find the drug that fits perfectly, and they have enough support and whatnot, and maybe they don't have the history that someone like our brothers have. And then they're able to just go, you know what, I'm going to talk to my friends about this. I'm going to go out with my friends, we're going to have some coffee and do this, that. And it does that for them, gives them that enough dopamine rush or whatever it might be, and to create that connection, because human connection is really what we're talking about. There's an absence of human connection. Homelessness, drug addiction, all of that. I don't like to call it homelessness. It's houselessness. You can have a home and be on the streets. You can. But anyway, so they're not getting what a lot of people might be getting. And I would say a lot. There's a lot of people not getting what they need. But it might be sex addiction they find it from, other things. I mean, they're getting that instant gratification, and that's why it's getting even more severe, because now we can do it on our phones, we can get needs met like that. So, but
I remember having, and we know, and the audience might not know, but as professionals, we know that trauma is really the gateway drug, not whatever one you think it is. But you know, and I tried to have these conversations with my brother back when he started off as a functioning alcoholic, then, you know, some cocaine and some different things, but it was mostly functioning alcoholic. And then about almost 10 years ago, he started using meth, and it just really fried his brain. But back when, you know, he was functional, we would have these conversations about, like, you know, dealing with the trauma. And he was abandoned by his biological mother at birth, and his father died when he was 7, and we adopted him. You know, there's some known abandonment, you know, issues for sure. But as a young man, he was like, oh, I'm fine. I have a good family now. And he's always told us he loves us. He always told us that he feels a part of the family. And he's actually biologically my cousin. But but still, there was exactly what you're saying. As soon as he hit teenage years, that alcohol was his coping.
Well, it makes sense after you told me kind of some backstory. Sorry, were you done? Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, that's a perfect recipe for escape. Not necessarily addiction into drugs and alcohol, but some type of need to escape. I mean, remember I said I felt like a stray dog when I was at the shelter with 156 vets and all of it. There's some of that going on, and I think, too, so you asked why they continue. My guess for him would be he has a lot of different, and I don't want to get too much into this because I don't know him, but in people in those circumstances, adoption and different things, I've seen a lot of that have those feelings of stray. Like, I don't belong here. There's already that. And then what you have given him, there's guilt tied to that, you know, I'm sure, because he loves you. And there's guilt because he knows you want to help, but he knows it's hard. most addicts, I believe, know this. They know what's happening. They may be manipulative, but it's just part of how they survive. But they, on the other side, they also can tell. They know they're usually smart enough to know what they're doing, but they can't stop it. And but what ends up happening is that creates more guilt and shame. I'm not good enough.
Right.
I did something wrong. So then they have to keep covering it up. That's why they continue. Because here's what I used to say, that so it's just a horrible cycle, because what we do is we to escape our problems, we make more problems. It doesn't make any sense, does it? Yeah.
Right.
It doesn't.
Right.
You know, I never could get algebra. I think I passed it because the teacher was fine. Like, it's your 4th time, you're done. Yeah, I suck at it. But that's an algebraic equation that, I mean, it's simple math, but it turns into algebra, because the truth is, why are we doing that? To escape. I only met one guy after working with thousands of people as a primary counselor, drug and addiction. I won't say his name, I don't remember it. But I remember, because it's been years, and I looked at him, I said, you really don't need to escape, do you? You really just like alcohol. I've been trying to tell you, Jeff, I just like to drink. And I go, you're the only person I've ever met just likes to drink. Like, you don't really, truth is, he probably had some, but he wasn't revealing it to me. But I was convinced that was the only person I've ever met. Dude just likes to taste alcohol, and he likes to party.
And that's what my brother's always said. Because, you know, me coming from a therapeutic side, I'm thinking, well, let's talk about this abandonment and trauma, and let's, you know, you're part of this family. We love you, you know. And he's always been like, I'm fine. And, like, there was an opportunity for him to meet his mother, and he was like, no, don't want to do that. And
more pain, I imagine.
Yeah, but there was never this engagement in what I thought, as a non-addict, he needed to do, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's what I'm saying. You bring that, that's all they see, and they run.
Yeah.
That's why I bring nothing but unconditional love. And I hope my brother agrees. I sure do. Because in my thinking, he could die at any minute.
No, I'm worried about the day that they knock on my door and tell me they found him,
Do I want my last interaction with him to be, oh my gosh, you won't believe this. I went to like 10 years of school, and I learned this. No.
Right.
No. You won't believe how many people I've helped, just like you. No.
Right.
Every addict's different.
Yeah. I got to put my ego away.
Right. We do. Yeah, and that's the sad part to me, Dr. B. I feel like it's too late before people realize. Hug them. Don't try to. I mean, there are cases, don't get me wrong, where you should try to get somebody into rehab. You know, I'm an example of that. It worked. I did it on my own, but you know, I did it on my own. A lot of bad life things happened. I used to say the government made me do it, but I there's reasons for that. But anyway, I never got a DUI or anything. I was very, very fortunate, but I was very close. So that's why I was like, the government was telling me, don't do this. But a lot of people, they're called stages of change, which I'm sure you're aware of, that we go through for any habit that we have or anything we're trying to change.
But review that for the readers,
sure,
the listeners.
Sure, the first one is pre-contemplative stage, like if somebody's have a relative that's been smoking 55 years since she was 13, and she still says, I'm going to smoke these cigarettes till I die. I will have my oxygen machine. I'm still going to be smoking. She's not contemplating quitting, pre-contemplative. That person's hard to get into rehab.
Yeah.
The next phase would be contemplative. They are contemplating it. For example, you might have a loved one that is throwing out the idea, I need to go to rehab. I might need to get help, or I might need to go to an IEP program. But then they bounce back to pre-contemplative.
Yeah, I was going to say, that. My brother's gone back and forth between those.
They do that. You're like, hell with that. I love this. Yeah. I'll never give these things up. The oxygen tank in the background. But then the next day, these are going to kill me. They can vacillate in days. And there is ways to get them to move through it. It's challenging, but it's usually not, in my opinion, it's not people that do it. It's circumstances in life. But the next one would be preparation. So and they can bounce back from contemplative preparation, even back to pre-contemplative. It's just like, this is not worth it. I tried that. I went to AA. The next one's action, where they're actually, if you got somebody that's in pre-contemplative, if you got somebody in like contemplative and preparation, getting them over to action. That's the best time. If you hear them talking about it and you see different things, like they may be doing less drinking and stuff like that, that's a good time to try to intervene. And then, of course, that last stage is maintenance. Some argue there's another stage. I think it's recovery. I forget what they call it. But maintenance stage is kind of like where I am. And of course, you can go back to those. But maintenance is just, okay, you've changed, and now you're just maintaining it. And relapse prevention is all about that. But moving them through those stages is, and again, this is just my opinion. I don't know if it's professional or not. Yeah.
Well, you've had a little bit of education and a little bit of experience.
Yeah,
so
but I'm still going to say
your opinion.
It might be, so my opinion, though,
Yeah.
I don't want people to think that all licensed addiction counselors think this. But from experience, from watching people change and not change, generally, and there's not a rock bottom for everyone, but it's motivated by pain. I have yet to see it not be motivated by pain. Whether there's a threat to someone leaving you.
When you're using so much, you're not feeling the pain.
You're not feeling it, and you have to feel more pain. It has to outweigh that numbness. And if they get a brief glimpse of no numbness, and then maybe a loved one says, well, I'm leaving, and they actually leave or something, that might be. Generally, in rehabs, we'd have people, it's kind of just a common thing. They would come and, I don't need to be here. And we'd say, okay, see you later. And then 2 days later, they'd be back. This time I spit on a cop, I beat 2 guys up, and I go, we feel like you need to be here yet? Yeah, okay, okay. Yeah. And so I used to work on cars, real quick analogy. It's kind of like we would hear people come in and they'd say, man, something's wrong with my radio, and it would be their fuel pump. And I'm like, what the? So we couldn't tell what it was because they said it was the radio. So we're like, come back. And then like a week later, we'd hear, we're like, oh, that's the fuel pump. Yeah, not the radio. Usually I had some older guys that say that to me. It's my radio again. But it's similar. So we would have them go away, experience life some more, because usually with addict, life always implodes, unfortunately. It's the way it is. And then they come back. So now, that's not true for everybody. Like in my brother's case, he lost 5 kids.
All at once, or?
No, they took him away.
Oh, from like the state lost custody.
Yeah, like he had twins and they took him at birth, and that was devastating. I can't imagine him and his wife. They're both drug addicts, and she was, I guess, using when she gave birth. And in his defense, and people that are like that, I've also learned from the years of doing this that life is not, it does not deal out fair amounts of pain.
Right.
And in the right proportions.
Yeah.
You would think, well, we all get certain hair color, we all get this, we should all get kind of the same pain. No, my first therapist taught me this. She stood up and she said, Jeff, your pain's not unique. And I went, well, yeah, it is, kind of is to me. But what she meant was, she was dealing with lupus at like 32 years old, and she told me about it, and she was crying. I was like, you're right, everybody experiences pain. But I would say a 5-year-old that has cancer experiences a lot more pain than I'm experiencing right now. So I think there's different degrees. And because of that, I'm not going to compare my ability to cope with pain to anybody else's anymore ever again. Because for one, I've had open heart surgery. There's a lot of different things that happened to me on the streets that were very painful. And I've realized that I would want death quickly if it continued. So that, I think, just seeing the humanity in them and their need to get away from that pain has really opened my eyes. Now I just give hugs. So I have a homeless outreach. I've had it for
here in Colorado Springs.
Colorado Springs.
Okay,
yeah.
we're gonna connect.
Yeah, Restoring Lives Project. Yeah, Restoring Lives Project. I started that when we moved out here for my special needs son. Fell in love with the area. Fell in love with the people on the streets here, and I went around. I can tell you all kinds of stories, Walt, but where a lot of these people were talking about that were struggling with drugs, alcohol. No one had touched him in years. I had a guy named Rob. I hugged him. He said, I haven't been hugged in 50 years. He wouldn't let go. I just hugged him. Hug, squeezed.
Yeah.
And I didn't say, here's help, here's that. I said, Rob, you mind if I hug you? And he's like, what? I just want to hug you. And I hugged him, and it was the best hug I've ever had. Mm-hmm. And he said, my family abandoned me a long time ago. These people abandoned me. These people abandoned me. And so in my mind, I'm hearing all these things that aren't working. But I'm thankful that I've been through what I've been through so that I can stand in front of somebody like that and just go, come here, and hug. So hopefully that helps. That's just my...
Well, and you really put it into a practical sense for me, right? Because, one, my ego, one, boundaries, enabling, like he was living with me, I was doing things that might have been enabling, and, it's hard to have that balance, so it's almost emotionally easier to cut off. But I could give him a hug next time I see him.
You can
I will.
You don't have to do it physically, you can do it mentally.
No, I'll give him a physical hug, because no one's touched him. He does not look approachable, and so I'm sure no one has given him a hug.
It's hurt him. I was that way on the streets. The biggest thing I missed was physical touch. My wife asked me this when we first met 15 years ago. What did you miss? And I said, I haven't thought about it, but now that you mention it, nobody touched me.
Yeah.
They ran from me because I didn't look like I look now. Mm-hmm. And the Black American man, I try to say that correctly, that Keenan, he gave me a hug when he gave me the coat. And that changed everything. Because my view was that no one wanted to be around me, that all they wanted to do is tell me what I was doing wrong. And if they wanted to be around me, it's because they had learned something new that could help somebody like me. Truth is, they had no idea how to help me. Mm-hmm. That's not true for necessarily rehabs. I'm not saying that. I'm saying most people. Yeah. Because the rehabs really did help me.
And even with my education, I don't know how to help you.
Yeah. Yeah, even education is not what telling me what I'm teaching. Now, it did teach me about the stages of change and how to recognize it get a bigger perspective of it. And I'm thankful for that. But you don't have to have an education to help somebody at all.
Yeah.
I always tell my son, I'll say that's not educated. And he's like, Dad, I ever had to go to school. I said, son, it has nothing to do with going to school. I'm talking about critical thinking, like just thinking about what you're doing. If it's not working, rethink it, not college. Mm-hmm. The only reason I went to college is so that I could do what I'm doing. But what I mainly learned about life and love was on the streets. And again, you have to remember that I was the system that we have. You get thrown into it, and it's structured in a way that everybody knows what you need besides you. So you're forced to go. So, for instance, and I love these places. I just want to talk about my experience. I was staying at a place called John 3:16. They forced you to be in at that time. This was years ago. At 5 p.m. Forced you to take a shower with 60 other guys. They force you to go to a church service. That's the last thing you want to do at that time. Then they force you to this just so you can sleep there. And then they kick you out at 5:30 a.m. And so it's all this structured stuff of, okay, I'm not good enough. The system's proven that I'm not. So everybody tells me exactly what I have to do when I have to do it because I'm a beggar. And another thing, the other day someone was surprised I never once begged on the streets. How'd you make it? I was 127 pounds. Yeah. But so in your brother and all, we're put into this structure that further reinforces that they're not good enough, that their spouse or their siblings are good enough because their siblings have education, their siblings have this, but they're not. Yeah. And that's not true. They're people just like you and me, and I think
like our family, a lot of other families, and I also have adopted children.
Yeah. That's awesome.
We try our best. We've all tried to show Wayne that we love him. But that progression that you talked about it is definitely clear.
And it's in him.
Yeah.
And he sees that you guys are doing everything you should do.
Yeah, right. And then he feels guilty because he's not
responding the way you think he should.
The way we want him to.
Or the way he thinks he should.
Yeah.
And as I say to your audience, let me say there is no right or wrong way to respond to any kind of love or attempt to help you. I think you do, no matter who you are, I think you do deserve the help, regardless of the guilt you may feel, regardless of the shame, regardless of things you've done or not done. There's a lot of big things we've not done that make us feel a certain way. But and all it takes is one step. And I always just say in rehab, if you can't trust yourself right now, and a lot of people in rehab can't, because their best thinking, as we say, got them to rehab. Trust others that present themselves as trustworthy. And for those people that are presenting themselves as trustworthy, I would say, earn your trust through unconditional hope and love and giving. And
I can do that.
you can do that, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very practical. I don't have to give them money. I don't have to, but I could. There's things I could do to show love without, giving money. So I really appreciate.
Sure.
I feel like I was receiving some counseling. So thank you for that.
No, you're welcome.
Let's back up just a little bit of from the time you made that decision and kind of turned your life around to deciding to be a professional counselor. That's a lot of education.
I started that at 13, by the way. I wanted to. Yeah.
What was that journey like of recovery and becoming a professional counselor?
Absolutely beautiful. Wonderful. Absolutely. The most joyous thing for me. They're going to make me tear up because the way that I was viewed on the streets, money was thrown at me. Businessmen spat on me. I was kicked out of, remember BOK, Bank of America in Tulsa, they have a big stadium. I was very hungry and no food, and a lot of homeless people stay away from the shelters because of abuse, rape, and you get mugged. So I stayed away, and I thought, well, this grand opening, I'll go in there. This is what it makes me think of. I go in there, get some food, and they shoot me out. And so I felt like the scum of the earth. And so when I started picking myself back up, for one, it was surreal. Because the first time that I realized that my life had gotten better, a guy named Blair gave me the keys to a big old property where he wanted me to take care of it over the summer. I'm like, you want me to stay here? And he's like, yeah, you stay here, you take care of the dogs, you can do all this. And I'm like, 400 acres? Me? And I felt like something's not right here. But then I started to really enjoy, okay, I can be respected. People can respect me. Also, I learned a lot about respect and not respect, but it was a good feeling. And then so I met my wife, and we would shovel dog crap together. I went back to school, and because I had an accounting class I had to finish because my minor was business. I finished it. I saved $10,000 working 3 jobs, worked as a school behavior tech, a mechanic, and then I took care of that property, and I paid for it. My wife helped me some too. She absolutely did. Yeah, she did, and it was a beautiful time for her and our 2 boys. We were running the property and everything. But then when we went to school, I ended up having an open heart surgery, which was really difficult. But I still did really well for me in school, and I loved it. But it was a grueling process, but I love to learn. My grandma always said I'll be a lifetime learner, and it invigorated me. And then when I got to help the first people I got to help, I'll never forget them. You know how that is. The reward I got is not matched by anything else. You can edit stuff. There's sex is the only other thing, I'll be honest. With somebody you love for a very long time. The beauty that you can't get that, well, some people might be able to get it through chocolate. I might be able to. Yeah, maybe. But you cannot get that any other way, So it's the same with therapy. I said the other day, and I don't care if it's inappropriate, it's the truth. You cannot get it's not a high, it's a satisfaction, it's a
oxytocin connection.
It is oxytocin. Yeah. It's a sense of accomplishment that you can't get. It may be in building certain things, with art and different things might come close in my mind, but to watch a family go from shattered to hugging and healing, and not just that, but to see them recover, and now years later, Jeff, I've been sober 10 years. Jeff, I've been sober 6. I don't know anything that matches that.
Yeah.
My brother, he's thinking about becoming a therapist, and I was like, don't get me going on that, because you get passionate, I'll get passionate, and you'll end up doing it. Like, you like that retirement, that teacher retirement, you better stay put, because that's not the field we're in. It's different.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that answers your question, but
Yeah.
I absolutely adore it.
Well, and it does. And this podcast is about embracing the journey, and you have embraced the journey, and you have, and I thank you for being real and vulnerable and sharing that.
Anytime.
One last question, personal question is, we're all on this mental health journey, and a lot of times people will look at therapists or, people who are quote unquote successful and think we're not on a journey.
We don't struggle.
Yeah. So what are the current struggles for you and how you move through those things?
Yeah, so when I talked about social phobia and agoraphobia, I have thankfully mastered those. When I say master, I don't mean that they're gone. What that means is I'm able to function in spite of those, and being a therapist has helped too. But even I was able to, even before I became a therapist, so just a regular Joe, I was able to work through those different things. I struggle with a type of depression, a seasonal depression, a type of depression of being a special needs father. That is a very difficult thing for me, someone that I adopted. That's a thing that I struggle with. My wife and I are not perfect. We love each other to death, but our relationship has its ups and downs like anybody else. I feel, yesterday, I feel inadequate at times. Yesterday I was doing my taxes, and the lady that's my tax lady has known me for a long time, and this lady next to her that was new there, she was sitting there, and she said, "What do you do for a living?" I said, "Well, I build boxes all day." And my hands are kind of, because I've gotten my company to where I only have to work a couple hours a day. So I build boxes for my workers, like keepsake boxes and stuff. And then I said, "Dad, I do like supervision." And she goes, "He's downplaying him. He's an owner of these businesses, a behavioral center." I go, "Oh, I mean, that's kind of what I do, but that's what I do all day." And I said, but I do have that imposter syndrome where I still struggle with anger towards the general population, because I've been on the streets and knowing what that's like, knowing, and because I've struggled with so many mental health challenges. I did struggle with psychosis in the past, different things, drug-induced, coming off drugs. But having been spat on and all those things, it left a scar in me that I don't think it will ever go away. But I'm also grateful for it because I can relate and I can feel that, because I volunteer every Monday at the homeless shelter and do a PTSD group, an addiction group. And I can feel it, I can sense it. I'm able to talk to them about it. But I still struggle with that when I see people going about their daily lives and the issues they have. You're like, and somebody that's been on the streets with, no clothes and nothing for years, you're like, how in the hell, how does that bother them? But then you also, as a therapist, I know we all have different levels of pain, but I still struggle with that anger sometimes. Also, I still have some issues, anger towards people that mistreated me because of my mental illnesses. I felt discriminated against. In some ways, I was overlooked. I was made fun of. Those things are still somewhat hard. And I know because I still dream about it. Be honest, I still struggle with my ex-wife. Yeah, I do. I still dream about it a lot. That is a struggle for me. I've had my own therapy. I've probably had 5 different therapists I have now. I've had for 7 years. And we work through a lot of stuff, but there are some things that really were significant in my life, and they're holding on. And in some respect, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Right. Because it makes me aware of what you might be going through. Yeah. With you. So for me, right now, currently, trying to figure out exactly where to go with our adult special needs son. That's very, very challenging, and at times I feel hopeless. But that doesn't stop me from doing what I'm doing. But that's the honest truth. Yeah, and that is the name of your company, Hope Mountain. And I feel hopeless. Maybe I should say. But it's that's what we need. Yeah. And the fact that you are willing to be honest and vulnerable and say,
yeah, I do have hope, but there are moments. We're not saying, we embody hopelessness.
No,
but
no, no.
the reality is we have moments of being hopeless. And so tell us about Hope Mountain, how you envisioned that, what you're doing now, how people can get involved. And we'll have all the Hope Mountain information at the bottom.
Well, yeah, thank you for having me, Dr. B.
Yeah.
I'm really thankful that you wanted to. I was like, I had some imposter syndrome. Like, she doesn't know who I am. She really want to talk to me? Yeah. I mean, that's how it goes. So I'm a real person. I just am. And so Hope Mountain actually started. So we moved to Colorado to get better help for our special needs son. And thank God for what you do. That's really helpful for a lot of people. But when I fell in love with the place, I started out in tent camps doing life skills, doing therapy, went to a lot of court cases for people for their kids as a therapist, built it from there, and I realized, man, I need an actual office because it stemmed out a lot of just the general population. So we work about 80% general population, maybe 20%. My workers are probably going to be like Jeffrey way off. In my mind, 20%, 20%, 15, 20% is the people, houseless individuals.
Right.
But we're also in, I think it's important for me to say this, we're in Freedom Springs, Springs Rescue Mission in Colorado Springs, Greenway Flats. These are Housing First communities.
Okay.
We're with Family Promise, about to be with Sunrise Medical Clinic. That's another important one. We're with Mile High Psychiatry. We have an office there. Then there's a couple other I'm not thinking of. But we have other offices that are just general offices for the public. We have probably actual offices, probably like 10. There are probably like 4 or 5 different actual offices. And we do a lot of online too. But mainly what we work with is whatever you
Would
just
you
heard
want to
my
do
story.
subletting space here?
I would love to. I would love to.
In about 3 months, we have a suite that we would love to have counselors here.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, because we're our model is using unlicensed counselors.
Yeah, and that's
but
what
we'd love to have that,
us real deal people that we spend our life lots of hours supervision. And absolutely, I supervise a lot of those folks, and I have I have another supervisor that does a lot of supervision. They're wonderful people. I love my team. They're great people. They're all smarter than me, which is wonderful. But sometimes I wonder what the heck they see in me. That's the being honest part of me. But so we work a lot with what you heard me say, all that story. Obviously, your business and reflection of your personality. We're a lot with trauma, a lot with anxiety, social anxiety, depression, even agoraphobia. We even work with some schizophrenia and schizoaffective and different things. Really, anything that comes from pain, trauma, we want to be there for you. And most of that stuff in those books does come from pain.
Do you have anybody doing brain spotting?
No. We had a psychiatrist that did. I think it was called Bright Futures. I think they were doing that. I don't know what happened, to be honest, but we don't know.
EMDR?
I have had several, but in the past, we actually had someone pass away that did EMDR, and she was wonderful. But I've lost a couple of them over the years because that's a great thing to have, and they usually go off on their own and do their own thing, which I support, but we haven't. But we're always looking for that in bilingual therapists. So if you're a therapist and you want to work with Hope Mountain, please, bilingual.
Yes.
Spanish in particular.
Well, they're going to need a couple more counselors because we're going to sublet up here. So any counselor looking for a job.
Connect to us, and thankfully we have a big supply of therapists coming in, and we have to unfortunately turn a lot of them down because it's just there's a lot. It's not a lot of great places to work, so trauma, anxiety, depression, some addiction. We're trying to get recognized by OVH as a substance abuse place, so that will be coming. I am a LAC, but we can still do it, but not necessarily when it's a primary.
Right.
So it's a secondary diagnosis, but we can still, and if not, we'll guide you to the right place. Thankfully, 7 years has given us a good footing in the community to know where to go and where not to go, places that are still available and places that shut down. So we know. And another thing is we get people in usually within a week. And that for Medicaid is unheard of, I guess.
And you take all insurance, including Medicaid?
Well, no. So we mainly we're kind of like a safety net program. So we work off grants too. We take mainly Medicaid. We're going to start soon. We haven't yet taken Cigna and Aetna.
Okay.
Blue Cross Blue Shield I used to take. We saw a huge need for people that were in the Medicaid population.
Yep.
And self-pay, and we actually have had grants in the past, and I have to be careful here how I word this, because we just got another grant, but our goal is to, again, be able to provide free therapy. There's so many situations you wouldn't believe, I don't say you wouldn't believe, but you would believe people that have BCBS that can't afford therapy, people that have Aetna can't afford therapy.
No, I know, yeah.
We have given a lot of sessions completely free, and the best part of it is we pay the therapist their full fee. Because my doctoral work's in burnout, and I want them to feel good, and then all of them, a good, fresh version of them is meeting this person.
Yeah.
So that's two of our huge goals. Can be able to pay what they would get in private practice or better, and then also provide free therapy for the community. Also, the grants we've used, we provide free therapy for the therapist. And again, we just kind of when they have to divvy it up and all that, but the goal is to continue to do that forever. So because I see a huge need in that for that.
Absolutely.
I'm sure you do.
I'm so proud of you, and I will definitely continue to connect. All of your contact information will be in the description of this YouTube, and we'll share it with you as well. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
That was probably my best interview.